So my ex-girlfriend's name is Kim Smith. And her mother's name is Kristen Smith. And her father's name is Larry Smith, and he's also known as Robin Williams, the actor and comedian Robin Williams. And so when I would go over to her parents' house with Kim, her mother would stand in the background and really would want nothing to do with me. She wouldn't really try to start a conversation with me. She would never try to talk to me. So that is the nature of their military program. It's the division of the sexes. So when there's an opportunity to talk about the women of the MKUltra program, I'm going to do that with all of my ability. So one of the women I want to discuss is Kristen Smith. So Kristen Smith is the type of woman that will allow her children to get abused, sexually abused. So I met Kim Smith at our workplace. We both worked at Filene's department store in Danbury, Connecticut. It was at the Danbury Mall. It was around the year 1997. And when I met her, Kim Smith was 17 years old. She was like 17 and a half years old. And I had just turned 21. And so she asked me to come over her house to meet her parents one day after work. So I went over there and we went up to her room. She wanted to show me her room that she shared with her younger brother. And at that time, her younger brother named Mike Smith was, I think, 10 years old. So I walked and stood in the doorway and I seen the younger kid watching TV. And I said something like, "How you doing, buddy? What's your name?" And he began to whine. He began to cry. "No, just leave me alone. Leave me alone." And he wouldn't look over at me. He would just look at the television and start whining. So I kind of looked over at Kim like I was confused. And she said, "Oh, just ignore him. He gets like that. That's why we don't want to talk to my little brother." So that's not normal. And that suggests sexual abuse. When you go to a kid's room and he's watching TV and you say, "How you doing?" and he doesn't want to even look over at you and instead says, "No, no, leave me alone, leave me alone," like he's whining, like I'm about to do something bad to him. So I've never seen that before in my life. That is not normal behavior for a 10-year-old boy. When I met my aunt's boyfriend, it was very exciting. My aunt's boyfriend was a football player. And I couldn't wait to go outside with him and throw the football around. I couldn't wait to meet my aunt's boyfriend, who I've been hearing about. It's exciting for a young kid to meet a young man. That is what younger kids look up to. Not with Mike Smith. Mike Smith will sit there on his bed and whine. And he will cry, "Leave me alone." So that is not normal. Same thing with his sister. His sister, who I ended up living with for 5 years, also had signs of being sexually abused by her uncle named Sean McManus, who was Kristen Smith's brother. In the final week of our relationship, we went on vacation to Virginia Beach. My dad had a timeshare down there. It just so happened that the hotel where he had a timeshare was in the same area where Kim Smith's uncle, named Sean McManus, worked for the Army at the nearby Army base. So her uncle Sean McManus was a sergeant at the nearby Army base. He lived with his wife and 2 kids in a house nearby the military base. And he was still in the Army when this happened. And Kim Smith wanted to hang out with her uncle, her mom's brother, named Sean McManus, almost the whole time. It was supposed to be a weekend that we would spend together during our vacation. But instead, her uncle came down and wanted to hang out with us every day. And she started to go out with her uncle at night. And I kind of went with them just as it was getting dark. And we went into a bar and they ordered drinks because Kim had just turned 21 at that time. And I had quit drinking. Kim Smith did not like the fact that I would drink too much when I would go out with my friends. And she would make a big deal over me drinking. So I ended up quitting drinking. So when Kim turned 21, she began drinking and drinking excessively. And when we went out that night in Virginia Beach, she acted like it was a big drain. She acted like it was a big drag to hang out with the sober guy, to hang out with the guy that did not want to drink. And she would prefer just to be alone with her uncle. So she gave me the cold shoulder. She snapped at me whenever I would try to talk to her. And her uncle just sat there and stared at me or looked down like they were waiting for me to leave. Because I was the third wheel. I was the bum out. Because they just wanted to drink and have a good time. And my presence somehow disturbed them. So I took the hint, went back to the hotel room. And around 2 or 3 o'clock that morning, Kim Smith and her uncle, Sean McManus, entered the front room of the hotel. And they got into bed together. There was a pull-out bed in the front room. They got into the bed together. And they were making noises out there as if they were fooling around. And when I heard the bed creaking, I did not go out there because it freaked me out. And instead I waited for about an hour or 2 until I didn't hear any more noises. And I went out there. I saw them under the sheets together. I lifted up the cover, and Kim did not have any underpants on. She had a t-shirt and no underpants on. So that suggests to me that she was having sex with Sean McManus, who is her mother's brother. That is her uncle. So when we first started dating and we moved in together, I found 2 or 3 letters written from a guy named Sean, addressed to Kim Smith. And the letters suggested somebody who was longing. Sean was longing for another visit from Kim Smith. The letters were written like it was a boyfriend or somebody who wanted to spend more time with somebody else because they were trying to pick them up. And when she got back, I said, "Who are these letters from Sean? Who is this Sean guy that you're keeping these letters from?" And she goes, "Oh, that's my uncle. He just wants me to go visit him at his house for the summer again. I used to go there when I was around 14 and stay the summer at his house. And he misses me and he wants me to come back." So again, just to be obvious about it, this is abuse going back to when she was a young kid. It's just completely bizarre. If the incident at Virginia Beach isn't obvious enough, some guy writing letters to his young niece requesting her to come back and spend another summer with him also suggests this abuse, this sexual abuse has been going on since she was a young kid. And women like Kristen Smith allow that to happen. So I do not know a lot about Kristen Smith. The weird thing is that I met her mother, and her mother looked almost identical to Kristen Smith. So Kim Smith's mother and Kim Smith's grandmother looked almost identical. They even had the same hairstyle, which was real short, curly black hair. They were both the same height, I would say around 4'11", and they were built like a pair, and they looked identical in the face. So Christy Smith also has a sister. And when I met her sister was very overweight. And I didn't notice it when I met her. But I just found some photos of them on Facebook. And I noticed that Christy Smith's sister, this is Kim Smith's aunt, she also looks very much like Christy Smith. So we have the grandmother and the grandmother's two daughters, all looking very much alike. So I do not have any scientific facts behind this. I have not done much research about it, but I'm going to guess that that may be a mark of people being inbred when they look very much alike. When people produce offspring that look very much alike, or they look identical to their parents, as in the case of the Smiths, I'm going to guess that that may be a sign of being inbred. So seeing that Mike Smith, who is Christy Smith's son, and Kim Smith both made it obvious that they have been sexually molested, and Kim Smith basically announced that she was having sex with her blood uncle, I'm going to guess that incest and child abuse is common in the Smith family. So Christy's maiden name was McManus. That's M-C-M-A-N-U-S. So Mrs. McManus is having two daughters and a son. And Christy Smith and her sister look very much alike. They look like they could be twins. And when I met Christy Smith's mother, she looked identical to her daughter. So I think this is a mark of being an intergenerational incest family. So what is very interesting is that if you look up MKUltra, I don't know how many books there are, but there are reports on the internet, and the reports are that the Nazis were very interested in families that were inbred. And when the CIA picked up the research that the Nazis were doing, and started their own MKUltra program in America, they too were interested in inbred families all around America. They were doing experiments or research on families that were inbred. And I think the reason they are doing this is because the people that are inbred tend to be what the military is looking for when they create these roboticized soldiers. They use the MKUltra technology to remotely guide, to remotely command and guide their agents or their soldiers. That is what a handler is somebody that will be connected to an agent or a soldier through the radio frequency energy technology, and then command or guide or control that soldier or agent from a remote location. And that is very important for the military. And they have found that the best people that could act as robots are inbreds, or people with low IQs. And how they explain it is that these people have a special gift. And that gift is the ability to disassociate. They will become hypnotized. Their mind will go blank. And then they can be completely controlled by the handler, by the technology from the military. They can speak through them. So when one of these little MKUltra agents goes in front of you and they are in a hypnotized or blank state, and you ask them a question and you start a conversation with them, you're not talking to the individual in front of you. You're talking to somebody who's controlling them. You're talking to an old man who's controlling this young, hot, 25-year-old blonde girl in front of you. That's who you're talking to. Some old military guy, some old military agent who has you on a list as a target, as a military target. That is who you are going to be talking to through their little agent. So if you're at a bar and you pick up this young, blonde, hot girl and you say, let's go back to my place. I'm sick of the bar. I'll show you where I live. And she agrees to go with you. You're essentially bringing in the military. You're allowing some 75 or 80-year-old pedophile into your house. That is who you're dealing with. So that is why people have heard about possessed people. These reports about people becoming possessed. And they often speak in languages that they don't know. They start ranting in Latin or Spanish or Italian or German. And of course, these people don't know these languages. How are they speaking in Latin or Italian or German? It's because their mind is blank. They are under mind control, and some handler or some agent is speaking through them. Why are these people enraged? These people who are possessed, why are they enraged? Because that is a program of the military. That is one of their soldiers. And right before they send them into a village to wreak havoc and kill the occupants of that village, they are going to drive them into that insane state. So they have this cute little blonde girl, kind of ditzy, with a beautiful little smile on her face. She looks kind of cute. You have no idea that she comes from an intergenerational incest family. And her special gift is to become hypnotized. Her mind goes blank. And any nut in the military could take over her conscious mind. And then you're dealing with them. And they could also send her into a bloodthirst rage and send her off to attack anybody they want her to attack. So Christy Smith is the type of woman that raises the Kim Smiths. She is another inbred with the ability to disassociate. So Kim Smith's aunt, her maiden name was McManus, and she married a man named Carter Wood. So her name is Mrs. Wood. I'll try to get her first name. The one thing I know about Carter Wood is that Kim Smith's aunt asked us to go up and dog sit for her one weekend. They lived in Clinton, Connecticut, and they asked us to dog sit. They had a German Shepherd, I believe. And so Kim's aunt asked us to go stay at their house for the weekend and watch their house and watch their dog while they went on some trip. So her uncle had a small briefcase, and inside of that briefcase was dozens of audio tapes. And this guy was into death metal. He had dozens of different bands, all death metal. So death metal is the worst form of heavy metal. He had stuff from Cannibal Corpse. He had stuff from Carcass. He had stuff from Witchcraft. There were just dozens of names of different groups. And on every tape cover, there were pentagrams and blood and satanic stuff. That is what death metal is about. Satanism, human sacrifice, and the lyrics are about killing and hurting people. So that is what Carter Wood was into, was death metal. And he just didn't have one or two tapes. That was his whole music collection. That was the only thing that he wanted to listen to, was death metal. Other than that, the house was very conservative. It was very empty. Just think of a very ordinary house with not a lot of furniture in it. And the one thing that stood out was this guy's music collection, which was all about Satanism and death metal. So that is how these people are. They try to hide what they are in these MKUltra intergenerational satanic families that are into incest. They're into child abuse. They're into ritual sacrifice. And they look like little dorks. They act like little dorks. And they can be placed under mind control, and they lose their personality. And they become whatever is controlling them. So I think that this is Carter Wood. I went to go see my daughter play a field hockey game. My daughters had a field hockey game. And this individual was standing there in the crowds. And my ex-wife had handed me a cooler for sodas and stuff. And she said something like, "Do you mind putting this into your car? Because I have to leave now." So I'm walking around with this cooler. And they say, "Would you like us to take that cooler and drop it off at Rachel's house? Because we have plans to go over there later on today." And I said, "No, it's okay, I have it. I'll drop it off myself." So this individual was standing there glaring at times. He's a heavy-set individual. He's a little short. And I believe that this is Carter Wood. This is Christy Smith's brother-in-law. This is her sister's husband, Carter Wood. So like I said at the beginning of this, Christy Smith was very quiet. And when we would go over the house to visit, she would always be in the background, like in the kitchen, doing something. She never tried to start a conversation with me at all. Larry Smith, also known as Robin Williams, he would try to make a little more conversation with me. But he was known to stutter, and he was known to drink. But he was a little more friendly than her mother. So that suggests that something is wrong. When you're meeting your daughter's boyfriend, her fiancé, that she's been living with for 2, 3, 4 years now, and you don't want anything to do with him. You don't even want to sit down and have a conversation with him or make any small talk with him. So that is what goes well in the MKUltra program. That is the type of person that allows her children to get abused. So I was thinking about it. What would it be like if we had a real military force and there was some compound somewhere where these people lived like a cult, and the police force raided that compound because there was reports about missing children, missing people, child abuse, sexual abuse, incest, and religious crimes. human sacrifice crimes. And I thought, what if the cops were to raid that compound and they came face to face with one of the matriarchs, one of the female controllers of that compound, one of the brains of that compound? That being Christy Smith and her sister, Mrs. Wood. What would they act like? And my guess would be that they would act like victims. They would stare blankly as if they're just another victim, that they're just another slave. They have no control about what's happening over there. If you ask them, they know why all those crimes took place. They know why everybody behaves like that. Because if they didn't, they would be killed. So they would act like victims. They would act like complete mind control victims. They would act like they have no control whatsoever. But I want to tell you, these women are the worst, because these are the women that are chosen by the top male pedophiles to be in charge of the women. And that's how they act, like victims. They act like they do not have any control over what is happening, and if they don't go along with it, they will be victimized too. But these are the head female perps. When I met their grandmother, she had a sadistic, conniving look on her face. Both her and her daughter, Christy, sat there chain-smoking cigarettes. And Christy kind of had more of a blank or kind of sad look on her face. But her mother looked conniving and sadistic. So that is the process of what these people go through. They start off as little androids, little incest children who become hypnotized. And as they get older, they then become the agents. They no longer are placed under mind control with the radio frequency technology. And they become the handlers of those who are. But that's the only difference between their handlers and the people they are handling, is how much energy is being directed at them. So Christy Smith was a good little incest girl. And when she got older and had kids, she was a good little incest mommy and would let people abuse her children. And when she got older, she didn't have to be placed under mind control anymore, and then was moved into the role of a handler that would handle the young kids, how to take part in incest and allow themselves to be sexually abused. So that is the process of these people. So that is one of the personalities that everybody should look out for. These women that act like they just had to go along with it, or it would be them. When it comes down to it, Christy Smith does not care about anybody. And the only thing that makes Christy Smith feel good is when this sort of abuse happens to others. So she's no longer alone. It becomes more normal if everybody's getting abused. So if she was made to feel unusual or bad when she was getting abused, as she sees that it's being done to everybody, it normalizes it. And that is just fine for Christy Smith, because when it comes down to it, this has been happening in her family for many generations. This is what her parents were into. This is what her grandparents were into. And the reason the militaries are interested in families such as hers is because they will go along with whatever the military wants them to go along with. Whatever situation you put these people in and say this is what's normal, becomes normal for them, becomes what they do. They know why they do it. They know why they let their kids get abused. They know why they murder people. They know why they commit these atrocities on video and then sell them on the internet. Is that something the military should be doing? The answer is no. But if you ask Christy Smith, the answer is yes. She'll go along with anything. Mrs. Wood will go along with anything. The bottom line is she knows why she does it. They know why they do it. And if you ask them to elaborate on that, they really can't. They know to keep their mouth shut. That is another trait that these people have. The ability to never speak, to never talk about anything. That is a very valuable trait in their MKUltra military incest camps, is the ability to shut their mouth and just to commit these crimes and never say anything about it. That's what they all know how to do too. And once again, that goes back for generations in their family. So when the CIA and the Nazis heard about these families who have been taking part in these religious crimes and these incest activities for generations, and they know how to keep their mouths shut, and they all know why they do that, that will be a perfect soldier. That would be a perfect agent for what the military has planned in America. And that is to attack regular American families, start sexually abusing children and grooming them to hate sex, to hate relationships, to hate families. And they could alter society into a military police state. That is how they're going to restructure society and change the human race into a bunch of synthetic humans, roboticized humans, part of cloning programs. That is what they are a part of with these incest families. It's the beginning of cloning programs. It's the beginning of changing the human race to become synthetic humans, roboticized humans that are controlled by a military police state. This is part of the alien agenda. So if you ask some of these people in the military, I think they call them old men. These top secret military programs that are infiltrating American society, they can't call the people who are in charge of their programs their commanders or their generals or some military rank. So a code word for them is old men and old women. The old man means somebody who is in charge of that particular group, that military occult group in a certain area. They are called the old men. So if you ask some of these low IQ, inbred old men why they do this, why they like this sort of family, they will probably tell you something like, those people always did as they were commanded. We never had any problem placing those people under mind control and having them do whatever we wanted them to do. We never had a problem with those people talking about what they were all involved with. So what is the next step to that? The next step is to consider their genetic structure very valuable. So they should have a lot of people just like the Smiths, or just like the Cables from New Milford, or just like the Gables from White Plains, New York. The military never had a problem with any of those people. So they should set up a cloning program and get a lot of people like the Smiths, like the Gables, and like the Cables. The military needs a lot of people like them. So to finish up with Kim Smith here, it was around October of 2000, and we were living in our condominium in Brookfield, Connecticut. And it was Halloween night, and Kim Smith had gone out with her friends. I don't know who. And I had gone out with my friends. I had gone out with Tyler Kerr and Neil Kelly. So when you are a target of the MKUltra program, they surround you with their agents. So my live-in girlfriend, Kim Smith, also known as Kristen Stewart, and my good buddies, Tyler Kerr, and my other buddy, Neil Kelly, they're all agents of the MKUltra program. So it was Halloween night in the year 2000, and we had gone out drinking in Danbury, Connecticut. We went to 2 or 3 different bars, and I remember sitting in my living room with Tyler Kerr and Neil Kelly when they dropped me off. They walked me in and sat down in the living room for a little bit, and I remember Tyler Kerr saying to me, "I'm going to get a glass of water. Do you want a glass of water too?" And I said yes. So Tyler Kerr walked out with a glass of water for me, and I remember drinking that. And then at some point they left. So I wanted to go to sleep. So I went to go take a shower. And I noticed that in the shower, I couldn't even stand up. I had been fine all night, walking around the streets of Danbury, around the bar district, drinking about the same amount of beer as I drink every time I go out drinking. To be honest with you, I would drink between 6 and 10 beers in one night. And I would drink maybe a beer or 2 an hour, sometimes a little bit more at the beginning. But I had a tolerance to alcohol. I was never known as a type of person that would drink too much and then completely become incoherent. I had a little bit of a tolerance. And I say that because I believe that Tyler Kerr put something in my water glass, because I went from being all right to the point that I could barely stand up. So I think that Tyler Kerr drugged me. So I almost lost my balance in the shower. So I decided to get out of the shower, and I put on my clothes, and I ended up sitting down in the hallway because it was hard to maintain my balance. So when I woke up, my girlfriend, Kim Smith, also known as Kristen Stewart, had gotten home. And I'll never forget the way she looked. It was Halloween night, and she was dressed up like a cat. She had black spandex on, and she had a headband with little cat ears on the top of the headband. And she had her face painted a little bit like a cat. She had drawn lines across her face like whiskers. But I'll never forget the look in her eyes. She did not look like she normally looked. She had this hatred in her eyes. She had this rage in her eyes. And they were wide open, and she looked slightly incoherent, like she had been hypnotized. And she has a pair of scissors in her hand, and she is stabbing me in the leg with a pair of scissors right in my ankle. And she is glaring at me with hate in her eyes. And so I jump up. I jump up when I notice what is happening. And Kim Smith jumps up too, and she backs away and sits on the sofa. And I guess I go back to the bedroom, and I go back to sleep. So when I wake up, I lift the blankets off of me, and I see that the bed is covered with blood. And I see that I have 2 wounds on my left leg. One is oval and is about the size of a quarter, and the other one is a little bit smaller, maybe between a 1.5 inch long. And it is also in a oval or circular type shape. So when I walk out to the hallway, I see there's a blood stain on the floor, right where Kim Smith had been stabbing me in the leg. And there was also blood splattered on the walls. There was blood splattered on the ceiling and the walls. But most of the blood had formed a stain on the carpet. And Kim Smith, also known as Kristen Stewart, was still seated on the sofa. And she was looking at me with real wide eyes, kind of like she was scared. And I said something like, "What are you doing?" And she said, "You don't remember what happened last night, do you?" And I think that that was more of a suggestion than a question. And I said something like, "What happened last night?" And she said, "Look at your leg. You did that to yourself." So it was still slightly unclear in my head what had happened. So when you look at my leg, when you look at my left leg and you see these 2 wounds on my leg, they are in an angle that suggests that somebody else did that. If I were to pull my foot close to me and then stab myself in the leg, I do not know why they would be in that angle. Not only do I remember the way Kim Smith, also known as Kristen Stewart, looked when I came to that night and saw what she was doing, you could tell with the scars on my leg that this was done by somebody sitting in front of me and stabbing me in the leg. The angle of where the scars are at are almost in the front of my leg. When I pull my leg to me, I could barely see the scars. So when I came to, I saw Kim Smith, also known as Kristen Stewart, kind of kneeling in front of me, and she was hunched forward, and she was stabbing me in the leg, and she was glaring at me with hate in her eyes. And as soon as I realized what was happening, I jumped straight up, and there was nothing in my hands, and she continued to glare at me, but backed away from me with this sadistic and weird look on her face. So when I wake up, and Kim Smith, also known as Kristen Stewart, was still seated on the sofa, and she said, "You don't remember what happened last night, do you?" And I said something like, "What happened last night?" And she said, "Look at your leg. You did that to yourself." So she said, "We have to go to a hospital." So for some reason, instead of going to the nearby Danbury Hospital, Kim Smith, also known as Kristen Stewart, decides to drive me to New Milford Hospital. So Kim Smith is from Danbury, Connecticut. We were living off of Federal Road in Brookfield. I think Danbury Hospital is something like 10 minutes away from where we lived. But instead, Kim Smith wants to drive 30 minutes to New Milford Hospital. So once we get to New Milford Hospital, I make up a story. I said I had lost my keys, so I had to enter my house through a window, and I must have hurt my leg crawling through the window. So I remember how the nurse looked over there. There was something weird about the way she looked. She didn't exactly look concerned. She looked angry. She looked angry and shocked. She had this weird, unnatural look to her. So I think that Kim Smith was programmed to want to go to New Milford because New Milford, Connecticut was the area where all this MKUltra mind control and ritual murder was happening. So New Milford, Connecticut is reported to have been a penal colony. Back in colonial times in America, New Milford was known as a penal colony, as a prison colony. And that information was reported to me by a retired Connecticut state trooper. And he had heard that sometime during his 30 or 40 years that he spent as a Connecticut state trooper. So the Connecticut state trooper's name was Al. And I had met him at Danbury Ambulance, where we both worked as wheelchair van drivers. He had retired and picked up another job driving a wheelchair van, and it was his job to train me about the whole process of transporting people around in their wheelchairs. So for about 2 or 3 weeks, I drove around with Al, and he was a very serious guy, and he did not like to talk too much. And we had a lot of calls into New Milford, and that was one of the stories that he told me, especially when we were driving to New Milford. And I commented about how many handicapped people were in New Milford. There are reports of people being inbred in New Milford. There are reports of high levels of mental retardation in New Milford. People with birth defects and deformities in New Milford, Connecticut. And this has to do with the MKUltra program and creating their agents through incest. So I don't know if you're going to be able to find information about New Milford, Connecticut being a penal colony at the Historic Society, because the military and the MKUltra program They like to erase data like that. That's something that they'll want to hide or cover up. So I trust information from retired state troopers that spent 30 or 40 years as a Connecticut state trooper. Sometimes New Milford, Connecticut is one of the largest towns in Connecticut and is kind of a self-contained town. The people from New Milford tend to stay in New Milford. New Milford has its own hospital. New Milford has its own nightlife. New Milford has its own bars. New Milford has its own arcades and youth centers. New Milford, Connecticut has its own bus line. Like Danbury, they have their own bus line. They have a city bus that drives up and down Route 7 and all over New Milford, transporting people to all the different plazas and workplaces in New Milford. So people from New Milford are known to stay in New Milford. And if you were to ask the people around Brookfield why the New Milford people act that way, they'll say something like, there are a lot of townies in New Milford. That's how New Milford people are. But the truth is that they are actually like that because of the MKUltra program and all the secret societies that flourish in New Milford, Connecticut. So what I'm getting at is that New Milford, Connecticut is a central point for the MKUltra program that functions with secret societies like the Freemasons and the Oddfellows and the American Legion and the Veterans of Foreign Wars and all of these other private clubs that are military or Freemasonic oriented clubs. They are all over the New Milford, Connecticut area. So that was the place that Kim Smith, also known as Kristen Stewart, was programmed to take me. After you get done attacking your boyfriend, don't go to Danbury Hospital, go to New Milford Hospital. Even though you are supposedly a Danbury girl who was from Danbury, Connecticut, and went to Danbury High School, and Danbury Hospital is only 5 or 10 minutes away from where you are located. Instead, take your injured boyfriend that you just got done stabbing and drive him all the way to New Milford Hospital. So Kim Smith, also known as Kristen Stewart, was born in 1979. I know it says something different on the internet now, but when I met Kristen Stewart around 1997, she was 17 years old, and I had just turned 21. And we met at the same department store where we worked at Danbury Fair Mall in Danbury, Connecticut. And I remember the first day she walked up to me, her eyes were slanted shut. She had real narrow eyes. And I said, "What color are your eyes? Are they brown?" And she opened her eyes real wide. And she goes, "No, they're blue, see?" And she leaned forward and opened her eyes real wide. So I got her phone number and we started talking on the phone. And then she would do strange things, like lead me to believe that she was single and she wanted to start a relationship with me. But then on my dinner break, I worked the night shift. I would be at the food court having my dinner, and I would see Kim Smith walking by with another guy. And this happened 2 or 3 times. I would see her with other guys. And when I would ask her about it, she would say, "Oh, he's just a friend from school." But the truth was that she was trying to provoke me because she was an agent of the MKUltra program. She was part of the military Hollywood establishment. She was getting molested at home by her uncle and most likely her father, who went by the name of Larry Smith, but his actor name is Robin Williams. And Robin Williams did not die in 2014 like they reported. He went on to become the director of national intelligence named Dennis Blair. That is where they found Robin Williams, in the military. I think he said he was in the Marine Corps. I remember this photograph being on their wall. And here is Larry Smith, also known as Robin Williams, as a young man in the military. And Kim Smith's mother went by the name of Christy Smith, while as an actor, she goes by the name of Sigourney Weaver. So when you meet these people in town or on the street, as they say, they do not want you to recognize who they are. That is part of the MKUltra program. They want to completely change their looks and look like ordinary people. It's something they get a kick out of. These rich Hollywood types that have done real well because they have involved their children in child molestation and pedophilia as part of the MKUltra program. So what Kim Smith liked to do is attempt to provoke me while I was drinking. And what I like to do on the weekends was get a 6-pack of beer or a 12-pack of beer. And right when I knew her in the late 90s, I was just starting writing. And I was writing a series of short stories. I was influenced by writers like Charles Bukowski, who was a big alcoholic. So I tried to do as he recommended, which is drink beer and write. So Kim Smith would wait until I started drinking, and then she would act like it was the worst thing I could do, was drink beer in the house. Just the sight of me going to the fridge for another beer disgusted her, enraged her. And this was part of their MKUltra program, to attempt to cause problems in my life by emotionally and mentally attacking me. Because the ironic thing was, I eventually quit drinking. And do you know what my great reward for that was? And that was for Kim Smith to start drinking. She would get completely intoxicated every time she would go out. And she would drink so much, she would come home and she would throw up all over the living room. She would throw up all over the inside of our car. We even went to a concert together, a Dave Matthews concert. It was Kim Smith, myself, and a couple of Kim Smith's friends. We went to a Dave Matthews concert, and they all started drinking and then started throwing the plastic beer bottles at other people in the stands. There were a couple of young girls who were dancing, sitting a few seats away from us at the concert. And Kim Smith and her friend began throwing plastic beer bottles at them after getting drunk. And then the grand finale was her going out and drinking with her uncle and having sex with her uncle when we took our first vacation together and went to Virginia Beach. So her uncle Sean McManus was a sergeant at the nearby army base. He lived with his wife and 2 kids in a house nearby the military base. And he was still in the army when this happened. He went out drinking with his niece, and then they came back and they slept in the front room together and had sex. And I think that they did this hoping to start a fight and get me arrested or abducted down in Virginia Beach by Sean McManus's good military buddies. I don't like their lifestyle. I don't like their incest activities. I don't like my girlfriend getting drunk and then fooling around with other men who are related to them. So I lose control and I run out to confront them, and I end up getting into a fight with Sean McManus and whoever else the military dispatches to that room. Who do you think would go to jail? Do you think Kim Smith and her uncle Sean McManus would have a different version of events than I would? Who do you think would be the crazy guy who the cops would haul off in handcuffs? John is so jealous that he now thinks that Kim Smith is going to cheat on him with her uncle. Who has the sick mind? Who comes up with these crazy stories? So when we got back from Virginia Beach, I went back to work, and Kim Smith said that she wanted to return to Virginia because her boss gave her another week off. So at that point, I did not trust Kim Smith, and I did not like Kim Smith, and I really did not know what I was going to do. The only thing I knew to do was get back to Connecticut and go back to work. And Kim Smith came up with another crazy story and said her boss gave her a second week off in a row, and she wanted to bring her friend named Anne Marie back to Virginia Beach, and this time they would stay at her uncle's house. We had stayed at a hotel before. My dad had a timeshare down there. It just so happened that the hotel where he had a timeshare was in the same area where Kim Smith's uncle named Sean McManus worked for the Army at the nearby Army base. So this is your MKUltra program. Everything just falls into place to set guys like me up. But since I kept it together and I did not run out there that night and start attacking Sean McManus, they couldn't completely take over my life. So when I got back from Virginia, I went to work. Kim went back to go stay with her uncle, and then she called me up and she said that she's planning on staying down there with him. And at that time I said, fine. What had happened was so sickening that I did not want to be together with her anymore. I did not want to hear her lies anymore. I always knew something was wrong with that girl. I always had anxiety around that girl. I was always depressed when I was around that girl. I never felt right around Kim Smith. I always knew something was wrong with her. During our whole relationship, we would get into arguments, and I would leave the house, and I think she would go out and cheat on me with a bunch of our quote-unquote friends. She would cheat on me all the time and then lie about it. So one day, Larry Smith called me up. In fact, I cannot remember if he called me or if I called him, because Kim Smith left a bunch of her personal items at the house, and they consisted of baby pictures, memorabilia from her childhood. It actually looked like something a parent would keep of their kid's childhood. There was a photo album. There was her baby shoes. There was a bunch of memorabilia that looked like something a parent would keep. So I think I may have called her parents up, and I got Larry Smith on the phone, also known as Robin Williams. And he said, what happened down in Virginia Beach? And I told him, I said, I have a suspicion that Kim is having a relationship with her uncle. And Larry Smith replied, I thought the same exact thing. And I said, well, what do you mean? And he said, well, when Kim and her uncle stopped by here, he was acting kind of controlling to her and dominating, like he was more of a boyfriend. And I said, well, I have a bunch of her stuff here that I'm sure her mother and you would want. Do you mind if I drop it off? And he said, sure, if you want to. So I went over there, and the garage door was open. And I started taking the 3 or 4 boxes out of my car and putting them into the garage, into the Smith's garage. And Larry Smith walked out and started complaining that he didn't want this junk here. And he acted like he didn't care that it was childhood memorabilia. So years later, after recognizing Larry Smith to be Robin Williams, I understand that Robin Williams was probably molesting Kim Smith too. These are the adults in Kim's life, all of them programming the younger kids into a pedophile society. So the child molestation, the pedophilia, and the inbreeding produce traits in their young agents that benefit the U.S. military. It creates agents like Kristen Stewart, also known as Kim Smith, who will go into trances on Halloween night and stab her boyfriend. She will put 2 holes in her boyfriend's leg after he drinks too much and passes out one night. And that is just the start, if they're allowed to do whatever they want. I guess the next thing is for Kristen Stewart, also known as Kim Smith, to walk over to the front door and let Larry Smith, also known as Robin Williams, in. Let Christy Smith, also known as Sigourney Weaver, in. And then they could all do something worse than stab me in the leg. The Flower of Life program is what the MKUltra program is doing now concerning American society. They were taking their agents and they were sending them to date regular people's kids because they want to get into your houses to attack and abduct you. That is what the British government has planned for America. They want to wipe out the American middle class. They want to take away all of the American rights, all of the American standards. They want to set into place a military dictatorship and just use America as a war machine until we go bankrupt and then just become another third world hellhole. So England had it right to begin with, and everybody in America was pretty stupid to want to revolt against England and demand rights like freedom of speech and freedom of press. England never liked the American Revolution against them. So this is what they're doing now in America. Many of these agents, many of these actors, even though they have American identities, they're actually from England. And they like to use their own because deep down these people hate America. They have no respect for America. And the only people they are loyal to is other intergenerational, satanic, ritually abused houses. So the last time I talked to Kim Smith was about 8 months after we broke up. So I'll guess around February of 2002. And at that time I was living at Tyler Kerr's house. This is Tyler Kerr number 1. So the condominium that Kim Smith and I had been living in, I signed it over to my mother. My mother moved into that condo. And I moved in with Tyler Kerr and his 2 roommates. They rented one side of a 2-family house in Danbury, Connecticut. And I asked him if he wouldn't mind if I move in there with him for a few months and just stay in the living room. So one night Tyler Kerr walks down the stairs. He hands me his phone and he says that Kim Smith has called him and she wants to talk to me. And I said, how does she get the number? And he says, I have no idea. And he just hands me the portable phone. So we had a short conversation, and what she said is that she was still living in Virginia, nearby Virginia Beach, but she had met another guy. She had met a new boyfriend, and he was also a soldier at that nearby army base, and so she had moved in with him. And I said, well, I'm glad you're okay. I'm glad that you found somebody else. So I think that was the last time I spoke to Kim Smith, approximately 8 months after we had broken up. So when I looked up Kim Smith on Facebook, I saw that she had several photographs with this individual named George Matroka in a military uniform. So I could only guess that this is the same individual that she discussed with me on the phone that night when we had our last conversation in February of 2002. This may be the guy that she met from the army base. So apparently they have 2 children together. And these are her 2 daughters, it seems. But as far as I know, Kim Smith could not have any children. She could not get pregnant. So I don't know whose children these are. So this is the weird thing. I saw an individual named Isaac Rice leaving comments on my ex-wife's Facebook page, on Rachel Vote's Facebook page. So I looked at Isaac Rice's Facebook page and I saw that he has a photograph of George Matroka uploaded onto his Facebook page. Isaac Rice has no description, but it looks like they are at the New England Dragway, and that's located in Epping, New Hampshire, about an hour and a half away from where I am in New Hampshire. So that leads me to ask one question. Why is Kim Smith's husband hanging out in New Hampshire at the New England Dragway and being photographed by Isaac Rice, who lives 5 minutes away from me and is friends with my ex-wife, Rachel Vogt? And the reason is because Kim Smith and her entire family and anybody she ends up meeting and marrying through the army is going to be part of this Hollywood stalking cult that will follow me wherever I go. Whatever state I will go to, I will get the Smiths. So Kim Smith and George Matroka didn't meet down in Virginia, get married and start a family like it seems on their Facebook page. The first opportunity that they could get, they left Virginia and moved up to New Hampshire. And they hang out at the New England Dragway. So what are the chances that Kim Smith's new husband would be friends with somebody who lives in Rachel Vogt's hometown, about 5 minutes away from where I live? So this is your military stalking program. So this is what these multi-millionaires from Hollywood do. This is what they get paid to do. They work to destabilize our country and harass people such as myself. So it is a fascist state with these people. And what fascism means is that the military, the corporations, and the media have all been joined together into one giant controlling entity. There is no independence anymore. It is just one giant military police state that has taken over everything. And they do not do this just for financial gain. They do this to take away your rights. They do this to control the American people any way they can. That is why they do this. Okay, first I did not recognize him, but this individual identified as George Matroka is actually the actor known as Alexander Skarsgård. So Alexander Skarsgård is the son of Stellan Skarsgård, and he's the guy who acted alongside of Robin Williams in the film Good Will Hunting. So that was a very popular film, and I think it won some awards. So it says that Alexander Skarsgård is a Swedish actor, and he's the son of this Hollywood actor, but still, he joined the military in Sweden. So as I'm trying to tell you, the theater is extremely important to the military. The act, the press coverage, the statements to the press, all of their spokespeople. This is all very important to the military. So when I started looking at all of these photographs of Alexander Skarsgård, I also recognized him as someone I considered to be absolutely crazy. And he was at the Office of Adult Probation. I was arrested for carrying a loaded weapon in my car. That was the charge that I ended up with. Carrying a loaded 22 caliber rifle in my car. So I had to go to probation for a couple of years, starting in 2012. So around December of 2012, when I was at the Office of Adult Probation in Derby, Connecticut, I was meeting with a guy named Mark Kernacki, who was my probation officer. And there was another probation officer, and he would walk by the door when I was meeting with Mark Kernacki, and he would look in as if he was beyond infuriated. He looked absolutely psychotic. So at that time, I thought that he was some crazy cop or some crazy probation officer. Oftentimes they're cops, or they used to be cops, and they go into the Office of Probation. So I thought he was some crazy cop, but he looked absolutely psychotic. I have never seen somebody look that angry at an office such as that. I never saw someone looking that angry who was representing himself as some employee of the state or of the government. He was the absolute worst that I have seen. So after that, I noticed that he was following me, and I noticed him in Waterbury, Connecticut on Interstate 84. There was some traffic in Waterbury, and he pulled up alongside me, and he had a female in the car, and I recognized him as the same individual who was at the Office of Adult Probation in Derby, Connecticut. And then again I saw him in Stamford. I was in Stamford because I worked in Stamford at the Bartlett Arboretum and Gardens, which is like a nature center. So I was walking through Stamford, Connecticut, and I noticed that individual driving past me in a vehicle a number of times. Then, about a year later, I think around November or December of 2013, I saw him coming out of a house in my father's neighborhood in Shelton, Connecticut. And he was with a heavy-set young woman. She looked around 20 or 25 years old. She was heavy and she was wearing glasses. And he was walking out of a house with her. And this house was located in the same neighborhood as where my father lived. So I think I had just gone to visit my dad. And I was driving out of the neighborhood. And I noticed him walking out of one of the neighbors' houses as I drove down the road. And like I said, he was with a younger woman, and I recognized him to be the same individual. Then the last time I saw him was around April of 2015. And at that time I was in Portland, Connecticut, which is right next to Middletown, Connecticut. And what I was doing was using a lottery system to select towns at random. I would basically put a bunch of names of different towns in a hat, and I would pick them at random. And once I would get to that town, I would use a set of dice to pick a neighborhood at random, where I would hand out flyers advertising my book, advertising my YouTube channel, and also advertising my landscape company. I had a flyer for each thing. I had 3 different flyers. And the reason I was doing this is because around the Waterbury area, I wasn't receiving any interest. Nobody was interested in the book that I wrote. Nobody was interested in hiring me for landscape work. And it seemed like their reaction was a little bit negative to the Eden vs. John website, to the Eden vs. John YouTube page. I had a write-up of what I covered on that YouTube channel, and I seemed to get a lot of bad reactions in my area. So I developed a system of selecting places at random, hoping to get a better reception and to generate more interest for my work. So for a while, I was putting in a bunch of towns in Middlesex County. I had gotten a road atlas for Middlesex County. So I would write down the names of the different towns that I would see in my atlas, and then I would pick them at random. And one turned out to be Portland, Connecticut. So in Portland, Connecticut, I ended up getting a lot of video evidence on an unmarked campground on Penfield Road in Portland, Connecticut. And I entitled that video, Bohemian Grove Jr. So that is a very important video to watch. So around that area, around Middletown, Connecticut, I was going door to door and I was handing out my flyer for the Eden vs. John YouTube page. And the same individual, later identified to be Alexander Skarsgård, came to the door. And the way I would introduce it was by telling people a little bit about an investigative documentary series that I had on that YouTube page entitled The Naugatuck State Forest Incident. And I began to tell him about that investigation. And he very quickly told me, not interested. And he seemed very angry about it. As soon as he opened the door, he looked like he had hate in his eyes. And he was extremely bitter about something. So I began to tell him a little bit about that investigative documentary. And before I even got a few sentences out, he snaps at me, not interested. And he shoves the flyer back out toward me. And I said something like, how could you not be interested to learn that the police are ignoring a human tibia that is found along the bank of a reservoir? And that enraged him. He said something like, don't you ever question me. Don't you ever come to my house and get that attitude with me again. You better get off my property, and get off my property quick before I have the cops come and have them arrest you. So I said, fine. And I began to walk up his driveway, where he began to follow me, completely enraged. And he was continuing to threaten me as he followed me up the driveway. So at the top of the driveway, I started to get into my car, and I saw that he had stopped at the top of his driveway, but he was still glaring at me and making threats about calling the police. So this individual, known as Alexander Skarsgård, is completely psychotic. To say that he has an anger problem would be a huge understatement. This guy is completely out of control. And this is somebody that the state of Connecticut will have walking around the Office of Adult Probation in Derby, Connecticut, of something of a manager there, a manager or another probation officer. But this is probably somebody that they'll also employ as a police officer or as an FBI agent. I guess they like these angry young men that have his look, and they just come across as being very violent men, very angry men. And this might intimidate lots of people. But somebody like that is extremely out of control. It's kind of an offhand remark to say that is the wrong temperament for somebody who is a police officer, for somebody who is going to be used in law enforcement or the government. But that is exactly what they promote. That is exactly what they're looking for. Because as I am trying to prove, all of these cops, all of these federal agents, they are the real criminals. They are the ones who are involved with organized crime. They are the ones involved with war crimes and war profiteering and human trafficking and government drug running and government-controlled prostitution. These are the people that make their money controlling all of that. And they also work in Hollywood, and they also work as federal agents and as cops. So that is somebody that they will use on the news as a police chief, as a detective, as a federal agent on the news, as any spokesperson they need. They will use this actor from Sweden named Alexander Skarsgård. And this person is extremely insane. So it's not going to be very easy to recognize him as George Mitroka, who is the new boyfriend of Kim Smith, also known as Kristen Stewart. But that is what they do. They specialize in changing their looks. And I'm sure that they're using different programs to change how they appear with a lot of these photos. I don't have any video of George Mitroka. I only have a handful of still shots taken off of Kim Smith's Facebook page. In this photograph, both their faces look extremely puffy. So I think that some of these have been altered with a computer program. You can press a button and change the way people look. So I'm sure that they're using that sort of technology to further change how they really look. So many of these photographs of Kim Smith, also known as Kristen Stewart, I believe were taken from our photo album. A lot of these photographs appear like photographs that I had taken of Kim Smith. So I think most of these photographs are photoshopped images where they've taken photographs of Kim, of Kristen Stewart, when she was around 20 or 21 years of age, when she was still together with me. And they've altered these images so she appears to be standing next to this army guy. This character portrayed by Alexander Skarsgård, named George Matroka. So the last thing I want to say is that when I identify many of these people who I knew as celebrities, it is not just a photograph matching game. I recognize all of these people from high school, from different workplaces. Lots of times I've known these people for many years or many months. So it's not just a picture matching game. This is all part of a complex investigation. It all has to do with facts and situations and incidents that happen in my life that enable me to recognize these people and identify these people. Hey, how you doing? How you doing, sir?
Hey. How are you?
Good to see you.
Good to see you. I remember you from somewhere.
Yeah, I came here before. I got a lot of wood off you, bro. So, I was wondering, you make deliveries to houses, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? So, could you deliver links, like logs that I could split myself, or you don't do that?
I don't really do that.
No?
No, not log.
When you say custom wood cutting, what are the sizes that I could get?
You can get from 12-inch to 24-inch.
Yeah, can I take a picture of the different sizes?
Sure.
Yeah?
That's long wood on there.
Yeah?
On that truck. Short wood at 7.
This is 24?
That's 24-inch on that truck. Well, 24.
Okay. And that's for real big wood burning
That's
stoves,
big,
huh?
That's
Yeah?
big stoves, yeah.
And then what else do you got?
Standard cut 16.
That's 16, huh?
Yeah.
And what size of wood do you usually cut up? All types?
All
or?
types.
Yeah? And it's all the same, huh?
It's all pretty much the same.
Yeah?
It's all mixed hardwood. Yep.
All right. So do you have any idea who will deliver like logs that I can split myself?
I really don't. People don't do it as much anymore because getting into homeowners places with log trucks is tough.
Yeah, I bet.
Big trucks. You know?
I bet. It looked like
everything comes here usually comes on tractor trailer. So
right.
that's a big truck.
So didn't you have like a big claw machine
Yep.
that moved stuff before? What happened with that?
What's that? That's basically that.
Oh, you're using that now?
Yeah.
I thought you had one of those things that have the claw on it before. No?
No.
Well, cool. Your name is Mike, right?
My name's Mike, yeah.
Mike. Pleasure, dude.
Nice
All right.
Nice to see you again. I recognize you from somewhere. Where do you live?
In Marlboro.
Okay.
I came here before, and I filled up the van a couple of times,
Yes,
stuff
I
like
remember that,
So, and that's you have better stuff over here than what's it called? Tree huggers.
Oh, it sure is a lot cheaper.
They sold me green wood, those sons of guns, and it wouldn't burn very good.
Jesus.
So what do you sell cords over here for?
200.
200 a cord.
Yeah.
How you doing? Is this the wife, Mike?
No, that's my stepdaughter.
That's your stepdaughter. How you doing? All right.
Yeah. No.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me know if we can help you.
All right, Mike.
You know, if you want to come get your own again, you're more than welcome to.
Yeah. How much to like fill up the van? If I can't carry a cord, so.
Probably 40, 50 bucks to put
40,
in the van.
50 bucks?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thanks a lot.
All right.
All right. Bye-bye.
Yeah, have a good day, pal.
You too. How you doing, sir?
Good, how are you?
Good. Are the phone lines down today?
Not that I'm aware of.
No, I've been trying to call you on the phone for like the past hour, and the phone lines have gone right to answering machine.
Did you leave a message?
I did not.
That's the issue, we would call you back.
You don't pick up the phones?
No, it's like,
We
it's
tried
so
to.
busy, we pick up what we can, and the others we can't.
Okay.
Okay? I'll do that as quickly as I can. Hey, how's buddy? Sorry to keep you waiting.
It's okay, sir.
I apologize about the phone.
It's all right. That's my account number. Hey, bud, how are you? Hey, bud, how are you?
Good, how are you doing?
Good.
What's going on?
I just brought the van in, I think 2 or 3 days ago, and I had the inspection. You got your hands full.
You can talk to them right in the office.
Oh yeah? Okay. Is his name Mr. Doob or?
Gary, he's on a road test, so you might be in there.
Okay. Thank you very much, man.
walking the bull, go bull, go out for the. I'm walking the bull, go bull, go out for the. I'm walking the bull, go bull, go out for the. I'm walking the bull, go bull, go out for the. I'm walking the bull, go bull, go out for the. I'm walking the bull, go bull, go out for the. I'm walking the bull, go bull, go out for the. I'm walking the bull, go bull, go out for the. I'm walking the bull, go bull, go out for the. I'm walking the bull, go bull, go out for the. I'm walking the bull, go bull, go out for the. I'm walking the bull, go bull, go out for the. I'm walking the bull, go bull, go out for the. I'm walking the bull, go bull, go out for the. I'm walking the bull, go bull, go out for the. I'm walking the bull, go bull, go out for the. I'm walking the bull, go bull, go out for the. walking the bull, go, bull, go. Out for the. I'm walking the bull, go, bull, go. Out for the. I'm walking the bull, go, bull, go. Out for the. I'm walking the bull, go, bull, go. Out for the. I'm walking the bull, go, bull, go. Out for the. I'm walking the bull, go, bull, go. Out for the. I'm walking the bull, go, bull, go. Out for the. I'm walking the bull, go, bull, go. Out for the. I'm walking the bull, go, bull, go. Out for the. I'm walking the bull, go, bull, go. Out for the. I'm walking the bull, go, bull, go. Out for the. I'm walking the bull, go, bull, go. Out for the. I'm walking the bull, go, bull, go. Out for the. I'm walking the bull, go, bull, go. Out for the. I'm walking the bull, go, bull, go. Out for the. I'm walking the bull, go, bull, go. Out for the. I'm walking the bull, go, bull, go. Out for the. I'm walking the bull, go, bull, go. Out for the. I'm walking the bull, go, bull, go. Out for the. I'm walking the bull, go, bull, go. Out for the. I'm walking the bull, go, bull, go. Out for the. I'm walking the bull, go, bull, go. Out for the. I'm walking the bull, go, bull, go. Out for the. I'm walking the bull, go, bull, go. Out for the. I'm walking the bull, go, bull, go. Out for the. I'm walking the bull, go, bull, go. Out for the. I'm walking the bull, go, bull, go. Out for the. I'm walking the bull, go, bull, go. Out for the. I'm walking the bull, go, bull, go. Out for the. I'm walking the bull, go, bull, go. Out for the. walking the bull, go, bull, go. Out for the. I'm walking the bull, go, bull, go. Out for the. I'm walking the bull, go, bull, go. Out for the. I'm walking the bull, go, bull, go. Out for the. I'm walking the bull, go, bull, go. Out for the. I'm walking the bull, go, bull, go. Out for the. I'm walking the bull, go, bull, go. Out for the. I'm walking the bull, go, bull, go. Out for the. I'm walking the bull, go, bull, go. Out for the. I'm walking the bull, go, bull, go. Out for the. I'm walking the bull, go, bull, go. Out for the. I'm walking the bull, go, bull, go. Out for the.